Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. We are going to talk about a few subjects this time around. We're going to first start off with the spoilers. Not too many of them, so we should go over this quickly. But then we're going to talk about cards that may affect other cards going up. We've seen a couple of cards that have increased quite a bit in value. One that I completely missed because it's funny because in the spoiler video I kept saying, oh, we should look at cards that give cards vigilance. And I completely forgot about Always Watching. So a little bit of a note, if you have any Always Watchings, they have doubled, almost tripled in value since the spoilers of the Exert mechanic has come out. And I think that they're not done. I think Always Watching will probably hit around $3.50 to $4 before it flatlines out, before it needs to prove itself if it's going to be a strategy. So there are some people that I've talked to that have been messing around with the Naya build with Exert, focused especially on Exert and Glorybringer, saying that Always Watching is just insane in that deck. But I'm very skeptical of Standard right now. If you actually come over to the metagame, or the metagame over at MTG Goldfish, you can see that 4-color Saheeli has pretty much dominated the format. Every now and again you'll see some Mardu vehicles in here, but it's now up to 35% of the metagame, and if you actually add up this 17% here, we're almost up to, I think some of these other versions over around here are pretty much Saheeli decks too. We're up to about 50% of the metagame being one deck. I forewarned about this problem. I said that Standard is going to be Valakut 2.0. If anyone played during the Jace the Mind Sculptor, Stoneforge, Mystic era, there was a lot of backlash about those two cards from when the Zendikar and Scars of Mirrodin were legal together. And I kept telling people that it wasn't really the Stoneforge / Jace's fault. It was Valakut's fault. Standard was garbage because of Valakut. And the reason being is every deck that could beat the Caw-Blade deck got just completely murdered by Valakut, because Valakut was just the inevitability of comboing off. You give them like 4 or 5 turns, they're going to win. And so any deck that tried to really push through or play like the attrition war with Caw-Blade was 100% going to lose to Valakut. And then Valakut just got stomped by the Caw-Blade's control aspect of the deck. So I think that we're in another standard other than I think that 4-color Saheeli. So when I predicted, I said even if 4-color Saheeli did not become the #1 deck, it's still going to make another deck the #1 deck, because there will just be decks that can't beat the #1 deck. They will automatically lose to Saheeli, and the combo players will refuse to give it up no matter how bad it is. Well, 4-color or Saheeli started off bad. It did terrible at the Pro Tour. It was one of the worst conversion rates ever in a Pro Tour history for the people that were playing the Saheeli decks, except for one gem that only had a handful of players playing it, which is the 4-color Energy Saheeli, which actually had a good win percentage, one of the best ones actually at the Pro Tour. And now we have 4-color Saheeli just completely dominating the format. And one of the problems is the only deck that really consistently beats it is Mardu vehicles, and every deck that beats Mardu vehicles, like this Black-Green Delirium for example, gets crushed by 4-color Saheeli. So that's kind of the problem with Standard right now, and I don't see any upside. Haven't seen any gems out of Amonkhet that can really fix this, because of the cards that are in this deck just are so good. Even if you have to cast a 2/2 for 2 mana, let's just check out the list if you're unfamiliar with this deck. I think everyone's played this a bazillion times. A 2/2 for 2 mana that can ramp is a pretty good card when compared to other cards. Like 2 mana for 2/2 is a bear. We know that bears are good in Magic the Gathering. Then you have the 3/2 for 3 mana that draws a card, which is insanely good. That is just screams value right there. Very good card to be flickered with the Felidar Guardian. But it's this, you can just turn the tides very quickly with these two out. That's only a 4-turn clock that you're going to be bashing down your opponent. Then you have the Whirler Virtuoso, which with all of the ways to make energy, absolutely will be able to create more than one Thopter. So this almost feels like a Pian Coronalar on crack here, because it's 1 mana less. And if anyone's played against this, this is their alternate win con, is just the Whirler Virtuoso getting out of hand and just attacking in. And then the Felidar Guardian can blink any one of these and still get value, like even the Servant of Conduit getting blinked is fine. but there's a lot of like Oath of Nissa getting blinked or Oath of Chandra. This is actually kind of a different list. I haven't seen the Ballistas, the Reverters, Gear Hulks in many lists. This is more of a aggressive 4 colors of Healy, but usually they have other things that they can blink with the Felidar Guardian that just give tons of value. And so you don't even need the combo for this card to be another basically draw a card or create a 1/1 Thopter or draw another card with Oath of Nissa or do 3 damage with Oath of Chandra. Or it's just an insanely powerful card by itself. And then, of course, when comboed with Saheeli, then it just goes infinite and wins the game. So this deck is just insanely good. I don't see any reason why this won't continue to be the #1 deck. It'd be kind of the same thing if Emrakul is still legal. I think that we'd actually have a two deck format right now with Emrakul and 4 color Saheeli, and they'd be about each 50% of the metagame. I think they're that powerful. I don't know how Reflector Mage or Smuggler's Copter would work in this type of format, but I think Smuggler's Copter would just be in this deck would be the problem. Same thing with Reflector Mage. So anyway, that's my caution about investing in or really trying to predict Amonkhet cards. Is we really have a boogeyman right now that needs to be dealt with before I think that there will be any options for brewing to occur. I mean, just look how terrible this is with 4 colors of Heelys, just taking over everything. Marty vehicles, 4 colors of Heelys. Why bother playing anything else? All right, so back to the spoilers. So another card that went up that I did get in on before was the now I can't think of the card. The Restore Balance. Restore Balance is a 0 cost or no mana cost card that they did rule that can be cast with the new Brain of the Jar type card. They can cast a 0, then a 1, then a 2, then a 3. And so that doubled in value, which is good. We're going to try to figure out other cards that get busted by Amonkhet cards. And then the last topic that I want to talk about is what's called bulk flipping. I just thought I've never talked about it on the Market Monday, and it's one of the strategies that got me back into creating a good collection. As many of you may know, I've told this story before. I had about $8,000 collection. It was stolen out of my car one evening, and I had to start back from scratch. So I know what it's like to be an insanely poor Magic player trying to get another collection going. So one of the reasons why I like Magic the Gathering, especially Paper Magic, is it is a collectible card game, and I've just always liked simulated markets and collecting things and watching my value grow. It's one of the cool things about owning a store now is just, watching my value grow of my store, especially since we started Gone Rogue Games with very, very little capital. I mean, no real actual liquid capital. We just actually bartered for everything in our store, and now we have a nice little bank account going as well as a nice little stock going, so it's super exciting. We've been able to do that in a terrible, terrible market here in Richfield, Utah, that has less than 10,000 people. So anyway, there are little tips and tricks to maximize the amount of value you can get out of your collection. One of them is bulk flipping, and I'll tell you how to do that after we get through the spoilers. So let's start out with the spoilers. We start off with a bomb of a card. This is Pull from Tomorrow, and this may be as good as Sphinx's Revelation. Let me say that again. This may be as good as Sphinx's Revelation. Yes, you don't get the life gain, but the card draw on this is pretty insane. I think, didn't this exist back in the day? Or maybe it was 1 mana. One of the Urza's blocks, the Genius, Stroke of Genius. I know it's similar to this, but these type of effects have always seen play in their respected formats. Draw X cards and discard a card. The discard a card, don't worry about it. You're going to go through a lot of cards and probably have something you don't need, like a land, so at that point, so the blue control decks are going to love this card because it's instant speed. So if they pump in like 3, 4, 5, 6 mana into it, it's always going to scale well. And that's what I think gives it a little bit more oomph over like Opportunity or some of the other Jace's Ingenuity that have been in the formats before, is because of the flexibility of drawing a ton of cards late game. So it's, the instant speed is really what makes this card good. And I mean, again, the discard a card is actually something that can be utilized with Madness at the time being, or other cards that want to be in the graveyard. So it is a rare, so I don't expect to have a heavy price tag. Any first set, it's going to be very tough for a rare to get over $5. We're talking about like Walking Ballista level. Other cards that have had a hard time getting over the $5 mark have been like Sylvan Advocate, when at one point it was in 40% of all decks. Same thing with like Tireless Tracker. We've seen plenty of other rares that, like Hero's Downfall, that was in so many decks at the time. They could never quite get Declaration of Stone. There's another one. They could never get over that $5 hump. So I don't expect Pull from Tomorrow to do that either. All right, so another of the split cards of Never and Return, destroy target creature or planeswalker, and then Aftermath you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. I'm not going to go into how much I hate this card. It's a worse Ruinous Path in my opinion, as animating a land I think is better at that point than, I don't know, Return you could go turn 3, and at least if you have nothing else to do something on turn 4 by exiling a creature. Like, it'll give you another way to get rid of Scrap Heap Scrounger. But the sorcery speed on both of these, I just cannot stand. I think either one or the other needed to be instant speed, especially the destroy target creature at instant speed. I have a hard time seeing this played over. I mean, it can kill a planeswalker, so Gideon it does finally, but people aren't running Ruinous Path because instant speed is so necessary in this format to kill Saheeli or Feldar Guardian or the Heart of Karan. Vehicles still exist with this format. We need instant speed removal. Sorcery speed removal is unplayable. So this one's going to be similar to Ruinous Path and go down to slightly above bulk. Now we get on to some really juicy things, because I think this is the first Embalm not in white. It seemed like white was getting all of the Embalm cards, and now we have Honored Hydra, which is a 6 mana for 6/6 trample. Completely unplayable for that aspect of it. This thing's going to be rarely hard cast. What this is going to be is this going to be Embalm like crazy out of a discard deck. The problem is I think that green is the color right now that doesn't utilize, well, I guess with Delirium it can. So there is some ways to set this up. Yeah, I guess so. Kind of the self-mill strategies can set the Honored Hydra up to get an embalmed 6/6 trample for only 4 mana, which is pretty good. You got to think of this if you're comparing this like Bristling Hydra or what's some other 4-drops that green is going to want to use right now. They're not going to be as good. A 6/6 trample is kind of vanilla in this day and age, but when it's free, it's free. And that's what cards out of your graveyard really are. It's free when you're milling them off the top of your library or discarding them from hand from a Cathartic Reading to draw its replacements. So this is just going to take, as far as resources are concerned, 4 mana from your graveyard to create a 6/6. That is pretty good. That is very good. And then this is another thing that can trigger off the... No, it doesn't trigger off the Prized Amalgam effect because it doesn't bring it back into the graveyard. But I mean, it does for even old school abilities like Populate. Yes, it does work with Populate because it becomes a token of that. I don't know. I think that this has some, looking back to other formats like Modern, could it? It just doesn't seem quite there still to be playable in the Modern type format. But this just does scream value. So I do like the Honored Hydra. All right, so here we go with the God, the White God, which I have been super excited because of Odric. And this one is Oketra the True, and it is Double Strike. And this is one of the things that I do like because this is one of the abilities that was tough for Odric. At the moment, we only have a Revolt Double Striker, and I think that was it really in the white. You'd have to go into red to get the Double Strike. And then for Odric, it gets Double Strike and Indestructible. The mana cost is a little bit off. I was hoping it was going to be a 3, as it would curve better with Odric. But then it creates a 1/1 white warrior creature token with Vigilance, so then you get Vigilance off of the counter that comes out, or the token that comes out. And now the Odric, it also gives a creature that will gain all those abilities. You'll have Double Strike, Indestructible, and Vigilance. And this card does not have to be turned on for Odric to start getting the abilities. That's the difference between this god and the old gods. From Theros. So, and it's pretty easy to get the 3 or more creatures online with being able to create creatures. This god does seem very weak though, a 3/6. I mean, it is basically a 6/6 with the Double Strike. But it's the 3 and a white to create 1/1. That's tough. That is tough. And of course it's competing with Gideon at the moment. I don't think that it's going to see play until Gideon's out of the format. So, yeah. That is the problem. But, I mean, maybe in control shells, like a blue-white control, or a black-white control shell, this is perfect just to create tokens. I definitely see the scenario of end of turn creating a token, untap, create 2 tokens, attack in. That is definitely something that goes long where you have 8 mana on board. And it's fairly durable. The problem is we have English Unmakings, which is, by the way, is going up in value in anticipation for the gods, and Declaration of Stones that can still hit this before it's turned on, because they aren't enchantments that then become creatures. They just are flat out creatures. So anyway, keep that in mind. Pretty sweet card though. Looking forward to brewing it with Odric. And now we have the Censor. It's a 1 and a blue, instant counter target spell unless its control plays 1, and cycling of a blue. Pretty good card, because this is exactly what a counter spell with a negative, it's weaker than a counter spell because they just have to pay 1. In fact, it's very easy for your opponent to pay 1. So this is pretty sweet though, because I mean it does remind you of Miscalculation. This card was great back in its I think it sees play every now and again in Pauper, but I mean it's insanely good just because if it messes up on curve spells, so they're 2-drop or they're 3-drop or they're 4-drop, they try to tap out for a get in, you counter it. If they leave 1 mana open, you don't waste your turn because you can just cycle it and draw a card. So really like this card. I think it is a very good counterspell that is desperately needed in the format. And if you've played, I've played a lot of these counter target spells unless they played one in the past, and they seem to be very good, almost as good as like pay 2, because a lot of times people just don't play around them. I mean, you'll get them once and then they'll start playing around them. And the problem with these cards, if they don't have cycling, is they get stuck in your hand late game and they're just completely useless. Cycling for just a blue is an insanely powerful ability. It's a cantrip right there. This is like a Thought Scour type card. Like if you just need cards in graveyards to do stuff, then right here, you cycle it right in the graveyard, draw a card, and typically 1 mana cantrips are very playable. They don't cast, though, to get the abilities like Young Pyromancer and things like that. Alright, so on to the Vizier of the Menagerie. Alright, so you may look at the top card of your library, you may cast the top card of your library if it's a creature card, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast creature spells. Well, Animar just got a new toy, for sure. I use a lot of abilities like this in Animar. And it's a 3/4 for 4 mana, so Commander, this is going to be a favorite. Elf Ball? Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's what, Garrick's Companion? No, not Garrick's Companion. Garrick's Pack Leader does a very similar ability as this, and it's 7 mana. So yeah, I think Elf Ball decks definitely want this card. Not a legendary creature, though, so you can't play it as your commander. But, yeah, for 4 mana, that's not bad. It does miss the Collected Company, so it's stupid in Modern right now, and same with Frontier, that you have to, like, pass the Collected Company test. Can it be COCO'd? No? Okay, it's unplayable. But 4 mana, though, for 3/4, pretty durable, so it's not going to die to, like, the Incendiary Flow or it'll still get Grasp of Darkness at the time being. It still can get Fatal Pushed, but it will not die to Incendiary Flow or Fiery Temper. Kind of cool ability about this too is it might be enough to, like, Ornithopter type spells, so you could chain off theoretically with Ornithopters. And I always thought of doing a deck that runs like Ornithopters. So there's then the other one out of Scars of Mirrodin, the Memnite, and then you have Walking Ballista, an Endless one, and what's the other Thopter creator? Hangerback Walker. And so all those you cast for 0. So if you have a card like Beck Call, for example, or there's a card that returns them all back to your hand. I can't remember if it's quite Legacy. No, that's definitely in Modern. So you sacrifice it, it's an enchantment, and you sacrifice it and it returns all creatures that died this turn back to your hand. And then you rinse and repeat by casting them all again. So what you're trying to do is effectively just get cast triggers. So most of them will die immediately, like the Walking Ballista and the Hangerback Walker and the Endless one, because you didn't pump any mana into it. I'll have to show you that shell before, because it's like, I've played it, it runs very similar to Cheerios, in Legacy. So what I do is I just cast a bunch of 0-drops, but it's the 0-drops that already kill themselves. I think it's called Phyrexian Marauder is another one from back in the day. But a bunch of those cards, just you cast them, kill himself, kill, get a huge storm count, and then just cast a storm card. Or Laboratory Maniac, you can go through your entire deck, because cards like Glimpse allow you just to draw your entire deck. So this, I think, can be broken in Modern. I think that 4 mana is a lot easier to do so, and then, of course, the Pack Leader, and then you can just, yeah, if you have ways to just filter off lands from the top of your library as well, then you can basically, again, just chain off everything and draw enough cards, manipulate the top of your library enough to cast a ton of cards in one turn, get them all back, rinse, and repeat. So this definitely will be a brew card for sure. If not, though, it's just a value-based card as well. Think of Tireless Tracker. I think this is like right on par with that sort of ability. All right, we have the Liliana's Expertise. Enchantment: zombies you control get +1/+1. When Liliana's Expertise enters the battlefield, create 2/2/2 zombie creature tokens. Wait a second, it doesn't do an Expertise type ability? Not bad, though. 5 mana for 2/3/3 zombies, because it gives all zombies +1/+1. This is something that could be flickered with Feldar Guardian, for example, or flickered with something else. Does seem to be a little bit high cost for what it does. 3/3. I don't know. What is this like? What do we have right now in the format? We have the one that creates 3 zombie tokens that are 2/2s and you gain 3 life. That's very similar mana cost. This helps all the Embalm cards get bigger as well. Crypt Breaker is in the format, so be looking at Crypt Breaker. This is another zombie tribal that works with it. I don't think that it'd want it, though. I really don't. But, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if it's actually value enough. I think this needed to be a 4-drop, but that might be a little... No, I think that that's right on par for 4 mana in this day and age when you're comparing it, again, right here to Gideon. Pretty sweet card, though, for Tribal Zombies. Tribal Zombies just probably has too many too many ways to give zombies +1/+1 now. I think you can make an entire commander deck out of just cards that give +1/+1 to zombies. Alright, so then on to the day that we did not talk about spoilers. We have the Champion of Ronus. You may exert Champion of Ronus' attacks. When you do, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. A lot of the cards want cast. They want to be broken at the moment. I don't think we have a lot of high converted mana cost cards that get much value if they just enter the battlefield. The Oath of the Gatewatch / Battle for Zendikar have a lot of cast, but it's still not bad. 3/3, this is what people are talking about with the exert mechanic. So if somehow you can give him haste and vigilance, and it gets a ton of value with it, and then you can get a creature onto the battlefield and just start wrecking havoc with it. We still have that guy that has the Pseudo Annihilator. When it attacks, exile 2 cards. It might be pretty good to get with this card. But in this day and age, though, I think that there's better ways to cheat in cards. I don't know, possibly. And it just dies at every removal spell right now in the format, with format that also already requires you to remove creatures that get immediate value, like the Feldar Guardians, and the, like, if you have to shoot down Heart of Crowns, then it's going to have a hard time actually getting this ability off. I think it's just too much setup to make it worth it. Alright, Winged Shepherd. This is really cool because we have another cycling card in white, and so like an Esper Living End might be viable. Flying Vigilance 3/3, of course, the only way you're going to actually utilize this is the cycling ability and then reanimate it back. It gives Pauper, this does give some sort of plus to Pauper, because just a 1/1 or a cycling for 3/3 gives you more of that type of archetype. Nimbleblade Kenra. Prowess 1/1 filler card. Okay. Supply Caravan 3/5. Whenever there's a battlefield, if you control a tap creature, you get a 1/1, another filler card. Bounty of the Luxa. 4 mana at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. Remove all flood counters. If no counters remove this way, put a flood counter on Bounty of Luxa and draw a card. Otherwise, add a colorless, a green, and a blue to your mana pool. So this card's going to ramp pretty well. Curves quite nicely because you can, on the first turn, you cast it for 4 mana and then immediately add 3 mana to your mana pool, and then cast something like a Rogue Refiner, for example. And then the next turn you're drawing a card, and then the next turn, so then that'd be your 4th turn, or your 5th turn, and then your 6th turn you're going to be able to add 6 mana plus 7, 8, 9. So if there's anything for 9 that you want to cast, that is pretty sweet. I like this card a lot. It's a card every other turn when you're generating mana and then ramping the other turn. And then if there's ways to manipulate it, like the proliferate, for example, you can draw cards in a row. But it's pretty sweet of a card. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. Dissenter's Deliverance. Cycling Destroy Target Artifact. That's pretty sweet because you can cycle it. Not bad. It's pauper playable as well for just the common. Angel of Sanctions. 5 mana for a 3/4 flying with Embalm 6. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Angel of Sanctions leaves the battlefield. Not a fan of this card. It seems to have too high converted mana costs of both the casting it and the embalming. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Because they get it back is the problem. It'll be good if exiling tokens and kind of throwing your opponent off curve. But dies to Grasp, dies to like a lot of cards that will just not get effect off Embalm. Again, this is a free card though. You got to think about if you get it in your graveyard, you can embalm it. And so you never underestimate free cards. It's free. So even if it has a high cost like 6, that is still pretty decent. But at the moment, I just don't see it really comparing to like Avacyn and Gideon and some of the other cards in that slot. New Perspective. Here's the card that I was talking about that breaks the suspend-based cards. Even though it is... No, this isn't the one. We already talked about the other blue card that breaks suspend cards. I just saw the 0 cost on it. Forgot what that is. We already talked about it. New Perspective, 6 mana, as enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. As long as you have 7 or more cards, you may cycle cards for 0. Pretty sweet, because we have some... In the history of Magic the Gathering, we have cards back in... think of Krosan the Beast, that you cycle it for 3, but you even have cards that you cycle for tons, like 7 mana. They get like an effect when you cycle them, so they want to be cycled, and this card just completely breaks them. I wonder if this is viable to then just go crazy with this. Think of like Hive Mind type, so if you play a deck that just tries to get a ton of mana out, we'll have to look at the old school cards that really, really, really want to be cycled for insane mana costs. I know there's a ton of them out there. So in the comment section, I want to say tweet, but comment on your favorite card to cycle that gets just busted with New Perspectives. So standard so far, all the cyclings are quite low, and then you're not getting any effect off of cycling. But I'm trying to think of which set it was that had a bunch of... I know there's one in Legacy that had a lot, like the Krosan, the Beast, whenever you cycle it, you get a land and put it on the battlefield. But there's also... Then there is a modern playable one that had, when you cycle it, does this, when you cycle it, does that, and it was quite... Like, you wanted to always cycle it. You never wanted to hard cast it because it was just so underwhelming with the hard cast, but the cycling ability was cool. Like, really powerful. So let me know in the comment sections about those specific cards. Okay, so 7 mana for Approach the Second. If Approach the Second Sun was cast from your hand, you cast another spell named Approach, you win the game. If not, you gain 7 life and you put it back. This card is dumb. I wish Magic would quit printing these alternate win conditions like this, because it just makes for unfun games, in my opinion. This one's kind of like, people are misunderstanding this, that you actually don't need to cast the first one from your hand. So if there's a way to cheat this into play with, like, because people are like, okay, it doesn't work with the card, why can't I even think of the card now? The energy card, that cheats off Emrakul and Ulamog, the Marvel. So Marvel, you don't need to cast the first one from your hand. So you can Marvel the first one, or somehow cheat the first one into play, and then the second one you can actually cast and just win the game. So in Marvel, you put it, Marvel's top 7, or is Marvel 6? Marvel's 6. Oh my god, this is disgusting with Marvel. So you Aetherworks Marvel, and then it puts it back. So you look at the top 6, and then you cast it, and then you put it back on in your library, 7th down. Then you Marvel again, and you'll then draw this the next turn. Am I doing that correctly? Yeah, you untap, before draw, Marvel, you will cast everything, or you'll look through everything, and then you will find, your draw will find this, and if you have 7 mana, you just cast it. Do you know what? I think a Marvel control shell can actually win with this quite easily. That's just disgusting, Wizards. Stop it. Stop with these alternate win cons. It just, whatever. I guess some people like them. Not a fan of it, though. So Approach is really cool with Marvel. Marvel's a card I think that you should always... Right now it's very low. I believe it's down to like $4, which is pretty insane. Alright, so let's go on to the last card spoiled, and we'll talk about bulk flipping in another video, because we're already getting into the 30-minute mark. This one is Cruel Algae. Enchant player at the beginning of the enchanted player's upkeep. That player sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. If the player can't, he or she loses 5 life. So this is fine with the curse. 7 mana is quite high. I think there is a card back in the day that goes and searches for a curse and puts it on the battlefield, which is cool because now we're getting a few curses here and there. So we'll go back again in the comment section below. Tell me what that card is in the comment section. And any other, if this is actually going to make commander curses viable. You don't even know if you can get in. I think that there are some curses that aren't playable in Modern because they were commander only. But this isn't bad. Sacrifice creature or planeswalker or lose 5 life beginning of upkeep. For 7 mana, there's just so many better things to do than this. But it's still a fun card. This is going to be your bulk mythic that people are going to love to play in Commander just to hate out a person. And it's going to be able to be cheated into play with the Witch. It's the Witch. When the Witch dies, you go get a curse and enchant a player with that curse, I believe. It's one of the Innistrad blocks. I believe Dark Ascension is the card. So maybe it's time to go look through your bulk bins and pick those up, because now it might be enough curses to actually make it worthwhile in like a commander base strategy. Or who knows, maybe Modern. I guess this will make a good little Saffron Olives against the odds strategy to try to curse enough players with enough of these just to flat out kill them. But anyway, these spoilers have been pretty good. I know I was a bit long-winded on these spoiler videos, and I'll try to do a video later on today about flipping bulk, which will actually be more of the Market Monday, as this one's more of just a spoiler video. So I'm probably not even going to tag this as Market Monday. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.